Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we're talking about a beloved children's cartoon and very famous character from the Nickelodeon TV series, which also has spawned multiple other things like movies, video games, toys, and all kinds of other stuff. Today we're talking about none other than SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob is a long running show on Nickelodeon. It's pretty much their flagship cartoon at this point. Sure, they have other big hits and other things coming here or there, but basically the only thing most people remember Nickelodeon for in recent years is SpongeBob, at least for me. I mean, I used to watch the channel as a kid. I used to watch Rugrats and all kinds of other cool stuff whenever I was younger. But in recent times, I don't really care anymore. I mean, I know it's a kids' channel, but I think Nickelodeon has lost a lot of prestige. They've lost a lot of clout and a lot of their audience. And that's why they have to hang on to these big franchises. But in addition to that, we've also come to learn that channels like Nickelodeon are owned by a mega corporation called Viacom. Viacom owns a number of other very left leaning channels as well, including MTV and Comedy Central. And since we've covered those channels pretty extensively here on the channel, we've come to find out they love pushing liberal indoctrination and left wing politics and getting all kinds of SJW culture stuff out there as hard as possible. Nickelodeon, unfortunately, has fallen victim to this terrible, terrible thing too, in a very subtle but very telling way. Recently, it's been announced in honor of Pride Month. Nickelodeon has all but confirmed that SpongeBob is, in fact, an alphabet person. He's gay now, and they're using this as a way to kind of advertise and get the channel some fresh kind of eyes on it, get some buzz around the show as well. It's kind of a show that's, you know, it's still popular, but it's been waning. It's been on forever, possibly past its prime. So Nickelodeon decided to pull this publicity stunt and make SpongeBob gay in honor of Pride Month, of course. And we're going to talk about that and a lot more today, go over the details, why it's silly, why it's unnecessary, and also why it's relevant to what's going on in the news currently. All that's coming up soon, but first, let's take a quick moment to check out our sponsor. As we've seen, there's been riots and chaos in the streets, and some places are forced to close and board up, and you can't get food in some parts of town. Well, we have a solution, and it's coming from preparewithnobs.com. My Patriot Supply has provided NoBS with an excellent option for some dry storage food. This food is really delicious, it's really affordable, and it can live on your shelf for many, many years. So you can always save it and have it in case of an emergency. And right now, we've seen many emergencies happening and popping up across the country and throughout the world. So buying some long-term emergency storage food is really a must. And if you join today and check out the link, Prepare with No BS, well, you can also save $100 instantly. So go to preparewithnobs.com, save $100 today, and also support the show while you do it. Thanks for your time. Now, back to today's episode. With that said, let's get back to the show. Now we're talking about SpongeBob again, of course, and he has, again, decided to come out as gay. He's an alphabet character now. It's pretty cheap. It's pretty telling how desperate this company is and how they're just trying to pander to leftists and all that jazz. So let's get some more details before we go over it more. This article has more. Teen Vogue has been known to be very supportive of this kind of ideology. So they're, of course, giving Nickelodeon and SpongeBob a glowing review in this article. Let's see what they have to say. It's called Nickelodeon Confirms SpongeBob SquarePants as part of the LGBTQ plus community, an icon by D. Elizabeth. And Nickelodeon is celebrating Pride Month by honoring some of its LGBTQ characters and actors, and that seemingly includes the iconic beloved cartoon SpongeBob SquarePants. The popular children's network took to Twitter on June 13th to share a tweet about Pride while shouting out a few familiar faces. Celebrating Pride with the alphabet community and their allies this month and every month, the official Nickelodeon Twitter account wrote. The tweet was accompanied by colorful graphics from artist Ramsey Masri featuring Henry Danger's Michael D. Cohen, Avatar Korra from The Legend of Korra, and SpongeBob himself. The inclusion of the cartoon Sponge ignited a social media controversy surrounding SpongeBob's sexual identity, with some folks declaring him a gay icon. And then here you can see the tweet in question. It's got these other characters. This is from Korra, this is from that. This is SpongeBob all in alphabet colors, all in the rainbow, of course. And as you can see, they're kind of confirming a long-time rumor. This isn't something that's 100% new. People kind of like suspected maybe SpongeBob was gay. He kind of acts a little like that, maybe, a little flamboyant, a little over the top. Nothing wrong with that either. It's just something people kind of suspected, but it's also something that doesn't really matter too much. Like, there's not really any sexuality to this character or this show. I mean, there's not a reason to really point this out. That's the kind of problem here is we're exposing children to this ideology, and it's good for them to support all kinds of people. There's nothing wrong with teaching our kids to be open-minded and happy and nice to everyone and, accepting of people that are different and stuff like that too. But to do it in this way, we got to remember there's always a sexual overtone when we're talking about sexual orientation. We're talking about alphabet people. All these alphabet letters stand for different kinds of relationships, people coupling in the ways they feel comfortable. And yes, they need to raise awareness for this in some ways. And yes, we understand these groups could face troubles and need help at times, but it's definitely getting overblown. It's definitely getting shoved in our faces way too much. And taking over children's cartoons is definitely suspect because we've seen this happen in other ways and other steps that become rather frightening down the line. Like, for example, we've seen them encourage kids to cross dress and do these dances that are rather inappropriate. They've done things on poles and stuff like that, like they're strippers. They've had people throw dollar bills at their kids. They've had kids get read to by these cross dressers, which isn't necessarily bad on the surface, but it can seem really creepy when they're dressed way too sexual and way too over the top, lots of makeup, cleavage, short skirts. Like, it's just really weird that they want to push this on kids. It also reminds me of another YouTube channel. There was that one YouTube channel, it was like queer kid stuff, and they would try to teach kids about this stuff without kind of realizing the full picture. Like I'm saying, I'm trying to be very, very sensitive and like very as nice as I can. Like, I understand the idea, and there's might even be some people that have a good point and a good lesson here. Like, Nickelodeon might not be thinking they're doing the wrong thing, but they kind of are. It's very strange and odd. And to take this character from a kid's show that, again, really shouldn't be sexualized at all. It shouldn't matter if they're gay, straight, whichever, T, L, A, G, P, T, whatever, Z, double, Y, X, Q, 2, whatever. None of those labels really matter for this show. And the fact that they want to put that in there, it's just one step down this kind of slippery slopes. People will say there's a slippery slope fallacy, but I think there is proof showing that down the line, these kinds of groups just push it further and further year after year. Someone says SpongeBob is gay. SpongeBob has been a gay icon for years. I literally had conversations about this with members of the alphabet community 20 years ago. Yeah, this cartoon's been on for a long time, since the 90s. So that's the other kind of thing. It's kind of like strange to take this legendary longtime character and to kind of put this on top of it. And also, it's kind of like rewriting history to me, the way I see it a lot of ways. Since this wasn't fully established in the beginning, wasn't part of the introduction of the character. The fact that they want to do this, it's kind of like, oh, let's watch SpongeBob again and just remember he's gay. It's like kind of like just adding this kind of subtext to all the episodes. It's like they're trying to rewrite the show in a lot of ways, reframe it at least. And I think that's what is really worrisome. And it could be seen as strange with any character that's similar. Like, what if someone said that Mickey Mouse was bi this whole time? What if they said another major cartoon character, like, say, the Animaniacs were all T this whole time, or whichever other ones. I'm trying to think of cartoons, Looney Tunes. What if Bugs Bunny was gay ever since the beginning, or what if he was like French? Some other kind of identity that you just didn't know about. It's just strange, and it just goes to show that if that identity could have been there this whole time without people really knowing it, it's like, is it really that important? That's the other question. That's the other question they don't think I don't think they want raised, and they don't want you to think of it like this. But it's like, okay, if SpongeBob has had this identity for decades and it didn't really affect or notice anything, then why does it even need to be brought up? Why do these people in the present need to wear it like a badge of honor? It just makes you kind of question the whole system. Gay SpongeBob stands rise. Here's a picture. It actually looks pretty funny. I like the colors in it. Others are pointing out that SpongeBob creator Stefan Hillenburg once described the show's title character as asexual, which of course also is part of the LGBTQ umbrella. We never intended them to be gay, Hillenburg said of SpongeBob and Patrick in 2005 per People. I consider them to be almost asexual. FYI, someone can be both gay and asexual, as such identities are not mutually exclusive. In referencing Hillenburg's comments, fans are also emphasized that asexual representation on TV and pop culture is lacking, and more inclusion is sorely needed. Okay, so this is an interesting turn. This is the creator directly saying this isn't true about 15 years ago. So I think the fact that SpongeBob is trying to bring it in now, like Nickelodeon's trying to reframe it now, it's just showing how cheap and how they're trying to pander in the present. And also they're doing it, timing is very important because we're not only in the middle of what's supposed to be Pride Month. Now Pride Month kind of got canceled and kind of got pushed back in a lot of ways and toned down because of current events, because of this health scare that's shutting a lot of things down. And there's also things like these riots and terrible demonstrations going wrong. These protests are causing things to change a little bit. But still, it is Pride Month, and Nickelodeon's trying to virtue signal. They're trying to show that they're down with these causes. They're rewriting this character, and it's a character that the creator specifically said he never intended them to be this. He never intended them to be gay. He said they're asexual. Now, asex also falls under the alphabet umbrella because they want to grab everything. It's basically anyone that's not straight or not in a traditional relationship. They get to be alphabet and lumped together because they kind of want to team up against straight people. They have a resentment towards them, as you could tell by the way they try to out them and try to, replace them in other media and all that stuff. But the other point is this whole article, this Teen Vogue, they're really bending over backwards. They're trying to say, oh, he did say that, but then we're saying asex is alphabet, and then they're talking about representation of that. And you could just tell this is coming from a very biased, like left-wing outlet trying to push this propaganda, trying to get this message out there. And they're trying to put it out to kids. It's Pride Month. It's also 2020, like current year is another big part of it. That's why Nickelodeon is stepping up and trying to get woke. And that goes along with their brand, with their greater company, their sister channels. It all makes sense when you know all these parts to the pie. Lastly, before we go, I want to put a little more context on this. We're going to talk about Viacom here. This is the company that owns Nickelodeon. I was mentioning them earlier, and I just want to stress so you can really understand the kind of biasness that comes from this and how like a big liberal-led corporation can push propaganda so effectively across platforms and across channels. So here are the main channels. Country music television isn't really of our concern today, but we've talked about MTV many times over the years. MTV Decoded was, of course, hosted by Francesca Ramsey. She also worked on a number of shows on Comedy Central, which is right here. Comedy Central is another big channel under this umbrella of Viacom. I think it's the second channel. I think these are the numbers, like the rankings a bit. One is MTV, two. Yeah, basically, you could see this is coming from these channels, and it's coming from the top down. Another one we've mentioned recently is the Paramount Network. Paramount Network is the channel that just canceled Cops. They just canceled Cops because of this anti-cop rhetoric. And back to Comedy Central a little bit. We, of course, have talked about them in relation to Francesca Ramsey, but also they've had the terrible, terrible defilement of The Daily Show, which has just become left-wing propaganda. It's crazy that The Daily Show has fallen. And so has a lot of other stuff there. They've been forced to downsize, and really the only thing good at Comedy Central anymore is South Park. BET, of course, falls in line with that. I mean, Black channel on this kind of woke network ownership. Showtime, not much to say there. But then we get down to Nickelodeon. Here's all the Nickelodeons and the spinoffs, and that falls right in line with what we're talking about. They basically just push their propaganda through these networks. And sure, it's like they try to make money, but at the same time, it seems like there's almost more focus on the propaganda lately. And a lot of these channels are failing. And I don't know if you could blame it all on their politics and becoming so overt and political in recent years, but it's certainly not helping. And you'd really think they would wisen up after all this backlash. That about wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Also hit that like button to help get this thing shared. And until next time, we'll see you on the other side.